Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I know John is, I think it's close to midnight where John is right now. So we appreciate him taking his time. John, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's 11 p.m. here, but I'm used to it. Like I've done AMAs at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. here. It's all good.
That's all right. We'll try not to keep you too long. Let you get some rest tonight. I know some of your AMAs have been like smack in the middle of your sleep cycle, so we're gonna try and avoid that here.
Oh, we're all good. I think when you're in DeFi, you just gotta equate to all the time zones in the world.
Yeah, I have a habit of waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and checking Discord, and it's a terrible decision almost every time.
Yeah, you get sucked into those news cycles, and then you see an AMA you like, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta listen to that now.
Oh yeah, Michael, how are you doing?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm doing well.
How was your weekend?
It was fantastic. Very hot, but a nice break from the regular work week.
It's awesome. Well, I mean, that's what the weekends are supposed to be, right? Is a decompress. Unfortunately, like John was hinting at, DeFi never sleeps, and apparently neither do we.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I figured we'd take a couple minutes just to banter until enough people showed up. Usually we get anywhere from 20 to 50 people on our AMAs and our weekly updates. So it's nice to see a number of people show up. I think we are recording. Are we recording, Michael?
Yes, we are recording.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So if anybody wants to hear a playback, we can do that. We can publish that a few hours after we wrap this up. Other than that, so John, we'll go ahead and get started. Tell us like the 30,000 foot view, like just elevator pitch of what KERC is and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, for sure. Well, KERC essentially is just bringing healthcare into the whole DeFi space in a way where it needs to be disrupted, it needs to be evolved, and it needs to be revolutionized. I would say in the most simple way, it's an industry that is severely overlooked, undervalued, and tough to get in because of just the scale and the mass of how you need to sort of get into it. And we are just bringing that all to the everyday Joe instead of going to the PEs and VCs who's going to take a big chunk of what we're trying to do. So in the midst of that, I guess we love the space, we love DeFi, we love Web3, and this is why we're here. We're here to disrupt and we're here to build new things together.
That's awesome. Now, a lot of projects, it comes down to who's running it, right? So the person behind or the people behind the project are incredibly important, especially when it comes to the space, because a lot of people are either anonymous or pseudo-anonymous. So could you tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, your education, what led you to healthcare, especially in Southeast Asia, and how that applies to what you're trying to accomplish with this project?
Yeah, for sure. Since I was a child, okay, I'm not going that far back. So I started my whole healthcare journey about a decade, more than a decade ago. I used to be in advertising and marketing and media management, so I'm very familiar with the space in terms of just how things are in the field. But I got into healthcare about nearly more than a decade ago, into basically medical tourism. That's when we sort of saw a bridge and a dying problem, especially within the states and other countries as well, because no healthcare system as of now I would say is perfect, but we definitely saw that there was sort of like a bridge in that sense. And I guess it would kin it to sort of if you go to a sundry store, you can buy any grocery or anything you want from all over the world. But when it comes to healthcare, why can you only choose anything from your backyard, basically, within proximity? Why can't you? Why isn't the world open to you? Because that's the truth. No one has the best healthcare, single best healthcare. One country might be good in this, one country might be good in that. So that sort of pushed me into the whole foray of health technology, and we've been creating my traditional company, we have been creating Web 2 systems and softwares and solutions for hospitals and healthcare investments and insurance and stuff like that. And I guess as we moved on into whatever we are doing, and as things were picking up, the whole COVID season sort of picked up, and we sort of had to pivot and rethink in terms of like how we're going to redo healthcare. And in that season is when we sort of ventured into and stumbled across the whole managing of healthcare assets as a whole, mostly GP clinics. That's what we were managing. We were managing at one point about 90 of them, like 80 to 90 of them. And before we handed it back off to the owners after we made them a profit, and they basically flipped it for more profits at the end of the day. So what we're doing right now is basically saying, hey, if we did that before, why can't we do that now? So this is my past experience in a very good short form way, I would say.
Cool. And so you have an established company already where you're at, where you're operating in a general sense of what you're trying to accomplish with KERC. You're already kind of up and running with this business in itself.
Yeah. So KERC is essentially not an MVP project or sort of like a test project. We know in a sense of what we've done before, and we know it can work. It's just more about raising the capital and where we raise it from. Because my love for the whole DeFi space, I'm in multiple projects. As personally as an investor, I've not started any projects. This is my first project into the array. Me and our lead developer, Snorky Pie, he's in the chat as well. We've been in a few projects together. That's where we sort of got to know each other, and we sort of found that this space is desperately in dire need of real utilization. And being in a business that I knew that could generate those kind of revenues, we thought, hey, this is an opportunity to marry both the whole Web3 space and also the traditional space. And the whole project came about by focusing on utility first and revenue first, and then we built the tokenomics, we built the whole things behind it. And I think that's why I would say Snorky is such a good developer and our lead developer, because I come from the whole Web 2 space at a traditional business sense, so I know how to make those things work. But whenever I talk to any other developer and I ask them, hey, do you think this is possible? Like, can we do this? Most of the time they'll say like, no, we can't do this. But Snorky is super cool. He'll be like, okay, yeah, that's tough, but yeah, I can do. So
yeah, I've never spoken to Snorky Pie personally, but his reputation precedes him. I've heard a lot of great things from people about him as a developer. So it's great to hear that you guys are connected and working together. So my question is healthcare is hit or miss, right? Like some of them are not very lucrative, and then some are. Like I have some friends here in the United States who they run medi spas where it's like injectables and a lot of like treatments and like facials and chemical peels. Like there's certain niches that are incredibly lucrative without a lot of necessary like medical training. So for you specifically, what is KERC going to specialize in when it comes to these revenue streams? What exactly is it that's going to drive the type of revenue that you're kind of projecting within the white paper?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a very great question, because a lot of times people sort of merge the two in terms of like when you talk about medi spas and stuff like that, and aesthetic clinics basically, those are actually more towards the wellness segment. They fill that gap between wellness and as well as health. So what KERC is looking at is basically primary care assets, general practitioner clinics. So these are sort of your triage and your forefront into any healthcare needs that you have. Because if you have a serious emergency, you'll go straight to the hospital emergency center. But let's just say if you have an issue where you need to find out what's going on and what's happening, even if under universal healthcare systems, you still need to go to a GP, a general practitioner near to you, before they can sort of write you a recommendation letter or basically refer you to a specialist hospital. So these are basically your bread and butter foray into healthcare in that sense. So KERC is going to be primarily looking at GP clinics as the main assets, but we're also moving into pharmacies and also more towards the smaller, we would normally call them brownfield hospitals.
Cool. Yeah, so I don't know enough about Southeast Asia. I believe you're looking mainly at Malaysia, correct?
Yeah, so we are starting off in Malaysia because when we were doing the research in terms of where would be a good place to sort of start this whole project, South America and Southeast Asia was the first, I would say, the first two contenders to sort of start this whole thing. South America, as good as it is in proximity, what we realized is that the amount that we raise for dollar, we would get way better mileage in Southeast Asia, and especially when I'm from Southeast Asia, so it made sense for us to sort of start this whole project in this area. And number two is more towards the crypto laws within this area is a bit more grey. Number one, in the sense where we know that there's no hard ban or there's no hard no against crypto currency here or any Web3 project, and it's most often more welcoming in that sense. Like we see Hong Kong leading the charge on that, and Singapore creating its own CBDC. So Malaysia was sort of a good place to sort of start before we start to expand into Thailand and Singapore down the road, and then we'll probably go to South America.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, we established our parent company in Panama because it's kind of the same thing. They kind of nothing crypto at the moment, and so we wanted to be in a place where we could remain flexible, not have the landscape shift under our feet, and kind of leave us exposed. So it makes sense. For now, we're dealing with real world assets. So traditionally, like historically within crypto, real world asset projects have not performed very well. And so the question I have for you is when it comes to this particular project, you're not building these clinics, you're not building these pharmacies, you're actually looking to acquire established companies and then optimizing them when it comes to revenue. So what's that timeline look like for you when it comes to putting these pieces together that results in revenue actually entering into the space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most often than not, GPs are very stable businesses because their overheads are generally super low. All in all, you just need honestly like a team of 5 people to run the GP clinic, and then it's all about volume because essentially you just need a doctor, a nurse, an administrational staff, your accountant. That's it basically because you just need the administrational person to sort of manage your consumables. The doctors are seeing the patients, and this is just assisting. That's all. And on that scale, most GPs do make a certain good amount of revenue. It's just most often than not, it's not sexy in a sense where it's the size of what hospitals or specialty centers can make. Because when you perform surgeries, obviously the cost is higher, and insurance covers a lot of things as well. So the charges can be higher in that sense. When you talk about GPs, your margins are mostly in the consumables and the simple tests, blood tests, X-rays, ultrasounds, vaccinations, injections, and stuff like that. So it's all about volume and margin in that sense. So most GPs, I would say globally, all in the world, are normally owned by doctors because businessmen don't like to go into this so much because it's the profits is not nice, and there's just so much regulations to sort of work around to get into this business because healthcare, there's so many bylaws that you sort of have to play within that field in that sense. So us being in this foray from over a decade, we are very familiar with the laws. We are quite familiar in terms of what needs to be done. So it sort of made sense for us to venture into this. And little to a lot of people's understanding, primary care GP assets are quite similar to, I would say, pharmacy companies in a sense. It's money printing businesses because your overheads are so low that everything is towards profit. From our experience of managing assets, we know we can easily do at scale easily 6 to 12% month on month based on the invested amount on those assets. At good months, definitely you can see up to 20-30% in terms of profits. On bad months, for example, when it's holiday season, I always say those months you see about 6% on average in terms of that. But if the clinic is not well optimized, you obviously will only see about 3 to 5% profits. And most of the doctors and the owners are happy with that because it's still good money in terms of that.
Right, right. Well, you've mentioned a couple times now regulation and knowing how the industry works specifically in certain countries. So I'm curious, at the end of the day, it comes down to execution. You know, the plans are great, but can you execute it? And so could you tell me a bit about who you know within the space, especially within the industry, and those that are in positions where they either have hands on the regulation or they are basically subject matter experts in it?
That's a great question. Normally, people don't really dive. This is the first time someone's asked me to sort of dive into those connections that I have. But definitely a great question. So, there's an old saying in Southeast Asia. It's more of connection. It's not a great saying, but it's basically they would say Malaysia Boleh in a sense, whereby as long as you have the right connections, you can sort of get away with anything. But in terms of the regulations, due to the whole COVID pandemic season, we were very, very fortunate enough to sort of work very closely with the government because it was a season in time where mass vaccinations and mass testing was sort of needed, and not many companies could sort of step up to that level of organizing people on such a mass scale. And being in an industry where we did easily a couple thousand patients of medical tourist patients year on year before this, it was very easy to sort of for us to organize everything at one go because our team had that experience behind us to sort of work that out. So basically when the government tendered the project out, we basically managed to got the project. We got in touch with a lot of the ministers, and we basically got involved with a lot of the health regulators in that area that we needed to. And so we are very familiar with these guys, and we're very familiar with how they work. And I guess through that whole tough, tribulating period, some of them even became very close friends, I would say.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I know a lot of people try to paint it as like this utopian, like if you have a great idea, it will rise to the top. And unfortunately, that's not true. A lot of times you can have a great idea, but who you know and how you can leverage those relationships to actually execute and bring it to fruition, that's as big, if not bigger, than the idea itself. And so it's nice to know that you have those connections in place because it is going to definitely make it easier for you to execute. Michael, do we have any questions for John yet?
We do. We have one from Robin Hood to start off. Is KERC focusing only on medical records and data, so to speak, or also on IoT, connecting devices over the blockchain?
Well, I'm just going to answer that straight, right? Okay, cool. So basically, KERC is not really focusing on that technology on itself. Our focus is going to be 100% on acquiring assets first. Because to bring innovation and bring changes into a very traditional and very old-guarded business realm, it's not going to be easy. With our past experience of introducing systems like that, medical record systems like what you said, or I heard IoT systems as well, doctors are very hesitant to sort of move into that realm because it takes a lot of effort and work to get them away from a system that they already sort of know, and they already sort of have a lot of things on their mind when it comes to medical records, patient care, and stuff like that. So these sort of things are the last things they want to really care about. So when we started this whole project, in a sense, the goal was to basically acquire a large volume of assets and introduce these systems that we sort of already have naturally into our own assets. Because when we acquire these assets, the doctors work under us. They don't really get a say in terms of like what we use or what we introduce. Basically, they just have to follow suit and use whatever we tell them to use. So all these things are naturally progression in a sense as in our business. So, for example, the moving of health data into smart contracts and tokenizing the health data into everyone's devices through an application, it's natural for us because the patients are us, our own patients eventually, and it's easy to basically introduce them into this ecosystem when they already are your client. And I'll definitely go deeper into that because obviously we need to talk about how Stasis is going to come into all this picture as well. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I saw Phip's question as well. Are you going to only be acquiring established GPs? Or are you going to be working with GPs to also establish new offices, like basically partnering with doctors to establish new operations, not necessarily build them all yourself?
Yeah, so we are only looking at established GPs because that's the only way this whole project's revenue utilization is going to work. New doctors, especially when they enter into a new market, it's going to take time for their businesses to pick up because at the end of the day, when it comes to GP practices, everyone is very particular because this is your home doctor. This is a doctor when you go to and show that little mole or hidden mole underneath your belly or somewhere private in that sense that you don't want to basically go to someone random. And these are guys that you sort of see growing up. So you don't necessarily would change your doctors, and most often than not, from what we know globally, even when people sort of move away from that region or that area, they normally tend to travel back just to see that doctor because your health data is there. Number one, it's just easier to sort of have that history with that doctor. Number two, is just they're just more comfortable with that. So that's why we're only looking at established GPs. We're not looking to any new partnerships or new startups because that return on investment will just take too long.
Cool. All right, so let's switch gears. I know we talked a lot about the industry and stuff. Let's talk about the actual crypto, where rubber meets the road for the people that are listening and what you're trying to accomplish in Web3. So you have revenue from these real world assets and you're bringing them into Web3. What should people expect from your token? What network is it on? What's the tokenomics look like? Talk to us a bit about what you're trying to accomplish from this relationship you're trying to build between your real world assets upcoming and the Web3 space with your community.
Yeah, for sure. So what we know from traditional businesses is that, as I said before, we can easily do a safe average of 6 to 12% month on month on the investment on the assets. So what that means and how is that going to translate is that we're going to push 80% of all revenue post-operational costs back to all our stakers in USDC. So when you're buying KERC, you're essentially buying basically a stake of the project at the end of the day. That's why we have a fixed cap, and that's why we only have a small amount of sale bit by bit in a sense. So what happens is that when you stake your KERC, you're going to be paid out in a fixed 1.5% USDC on your amount and a profit participation. And the reason why we decided
is that 1.5% per day, per week, per month?
Per month.
Okay.
Fixed. Yeah. So per month fixed on your investment size. So for example, if you put in $1,000, that will be 150. No. Wait, is that 150? Yeah. So that per month plus profit participation. So what that means is that you are essentially guaranteed that 1.5% fixed with any additional things that we push out from the revenue, because the issue with real world businesses is that the moment you sort of acquire them and you sort of take them over, it takes time for you to sort of ramp them up to an optimizational level that we are happy with. And especially when we are introducing a lot of systems into place for them, when we are introducing moving away from pen and paper to digitization, telemedicine stuff, and all these kind of things. So it takes time for them to sort of ramp up to that level that we know that we can achieve. So we know those general practitioners that we are acquiring generally do about 3 to 6% month on month, based on the asset value that you sort of buy into them. So cool. That's the reason why we sort of fixed it at 1.5% with profit participation, and that gives us that level to sort of ramp up towards that safe level that we are happy with.
So basically, you have fixed and variable rewards. So the fixed rewards per month are 1.5%. And then revenue generation creates the variable on top. So let's say, for example, your overall operation earns 10% for that month. What would the payouts to investors look like for that month if, say, you earn 10%?
Yeah, so if it's 10% clean, that would mean it will be 1.5% fixed, and the remaining of that 10% will be in profit participation. So what happens is that we are going to take off 20% off from that clean profit before, in that sense, to keep as what we call real world treasury in the sense of our war chest, because as a traditional business you still need that level of I would say treasury funds, just in case like something happens, something breaks, you need to fix something, you need to upgrade something, you need that safety net of that cash value there.
Okay, yeah, so in that example 8% would go to the investors, 1.5 fixed, and then 6.5 variable for that month, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so when it comes to the tokenomics, are you what network are we on?
So we are launching on Arbitrum because we like the ease of connection of how it's like ETH, but without the ETH problems.
Yeah. Arbitrum is incredibly popular right now, so I don't blame you guys for going that route at all. And from what I hear, the Arbitrum team themselves are very collaborative. So I think you'll have a lot of opportunities with them to kind of build some awareness with the project. When it comes to the tokenomics itself, what's the total supply look like? What's the breakdown? What should people who are participating expect when it comes to the tokenomics?
So if you want the complete breakdown, I would say the best place to sort of look at is the white paper in as a whole, because we have definitely set out I would say a good percentage and a healthy percentage to split. So we have 500 million tokens as a max supply because we are gearing this towards the utilization of our tokens. As you can see in our white paper, one part of our roadmap and our plans is that when we acquire these assets, it's very easy for us to start introducing system payments for them to say, hey, look, this is your bill for today. Do you want to pay in fiat, or maybe you want to pay in KERC for maybe a slight discount, some points, or maybe some giveaways down the road in a sense. So all they need to do is just use their credit card and or their debit card or pay in cash, and basically we sort of just convert that whole process for them without any hassle for them. So this creates a natural buy pressure on our token on itself. But if you're looking at the token allocation, we are putting about 70% aside for the full project and the full ecosystem. 15% will go into operations. The team will have about 8% of the tokens, advisory 2, and we have 5% in reserves.
Okay. All right. Now, when it comes to projections, obviously we'll always put an asterisk on projections. You can do your best to say this is what you should expect, but you take it with a grain of salt. So for KERC, you have the 1.5% and then you have the variable on top. In a general sense, over the next, say, 6-12 months, what should people expect for an ROI on their investment, or an average APY per month for what you're offering when it comes to the tokenomics? Yeah,
for sure. That's a great point to point out now, because we know that at the end of the day, we want to get to a 60 to a 100% ROI within a year. That means, because from our previous experience with managing these kind of assets, because of how undervalued they are, and it's quite tough for these doctors and business owners, small-time business owners, to sort of offload these assets because there's not many people in the market interested enough to pick this up. They are normally quite low in terms of their costing. So they are normally about 1 times revenue or 1 times net EBITDA in that sense, depending on how profitable they are. So we know we can sort of ROI these assets sometimes within even 13 months to 12 months. So this is the sort of backwards projection that we're working towards, and we sort of want to see a healthy range of 60% to about 100% in a year. But to get there, obviously, it takes time. It's not going to be immediate. So that's the reason why we're giving these airdrop bonuses to all our early investors. You're only going to get these airdrop bonuses at the pre-sale right now if you stake with us for the 12 months. So what that means is that you're going to get, if you compound your tokens and if you recompound back, you're essentially getting nearly 355% APY. The reason why is because we know that we can get you to a 6%, and if you compound your tokens, that 1.5% will essentially be a multiplication of 3. You'll be getting at least a 3% fix on your investment at the end of year 1. So that's sort of like the benchmark we sort of want to get you towards, and all our investors towards. So I would say a safe bare minimum that we are fixing is at least a 30+% APY year on year.
Okay, 30+%. Yeah, I mean that's a much more reasonable number, especially when you're talking about real world assets. I know some people will get scared off when they see the percentages in the hundreds or the thousands. So that's good to know that there's a realistic idea. When it comes to the staking, is there an opportunity for people to unstake early? I know like one part of Stasis's ethos is like no locks or timers. And so for KERC, is there an opportunity for people if they have, let's say, that 355% stays true and 6 months later they want to unstake? Is there an opportunity for them to quote unquote take profit without feeling like they're basically losing all of their capital? Is there an opportunity there for them?
Yeah, so definitely yes, because at the end of the day, you're being paid out in USDC. So you are not your staking holdings are not affected. But obviously, because we are also handling real world assets, we don't want the reason why we introduce a 40% de-stake penalty is because we don't want swing traders. We believe that KERC is going to be a very stable project, and the price point, we want to keep the price point stable. Whatever we have created in terms of the utilities of the tokens and the tokenomics and all that, that we have sort of worked towards has been in a sense of months in the backdrawn planning. And what we've did is essentially sort of created a system where we don't want to encourage swing traders. We want our token to sort of stay in a very good and stable price point so that at the end of the day, I think everyone will be rewarded. And if people sort of want to arbitrage and play that futures game, that's why we sort of started a LP pool with Arbidex. And both systems are going to be dynamic. So in the sense of, let's just say we understand that you have an emergency, you need to basically cash out some of your assets because there's a problem in the household, or if there's issues. Our staking, you can de-stake in a dynamic sense. That means you don't have to de-stake your whole position. You can de-stake a smaller amount of position, but that will still come at a penalty because at the end of the day, we don't want people to sort of play around with the airdrops too much and swing trade a bit too much in that sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. Now, in our experience, DeFi investors can be fickle. Not all of them, but some of them do like to jump in and out of investments relatively quickly. So you can't always depend on them for a raise. Now, my question for you is how much of what you're looking to raise, or how much are you of what you're looking to commit to the project? How much of it is your own money? How much of it is financiers? How much of it is going to be from DeFi raises? What's the breakdown like that look like, at least on the back end, when it comes to capital committed to making this operation successful?
So we have basically put up our own capital so far in terms of all the back end stuff. In terms of like some of the I would say man hours and structures that we sort of had to put into place. We did had a seed round on a very, very early stage to sort of help us get those companies incorporated and to set up the paid up capital in that sense there. The rest of all the funds is going to come from all our investors in that sense where we sort of draw that line in the sand where we didn't want our personal assets because in my traditional company as well, I personally own a few of these GP assets as well, but I didn't want to bleed that cross chain across into this project. That's why I had to restart this whole thing and create new companies and clean companies so that even when we do our audits to our community members, the paperwork is clean, there's no dilution, there's no extra fee that needs to be taken out and stuff like that. Everything that is there is going to be there in that sense.
Okay. Yeah. So you kind of created a partition between your existing businesses and these new ones. But the nice thing is you're already doing the business. Now you're just extending it into Web3, right?
That'd be correct.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm actually taking a lot of these questions from IC Dead people. He helped me out by putting them in the chat. So I appreciate him for doing that. Now, when it comes to the actual trading of the token, now they're getting paid in USDC. So the token itself isn't being paid in rewards. I know a lot of projects, including my own project, the reward token is the native token. So for you, you're paying out in USDC. So how does that affect the way the KERC token is either traded or held or its value? So like, for example, I see dead people asked about the value in the LP pool versus how much you raise. How are you setting that up, at least from a numbers projection standpoint, to, like you said, keep the price stable, but also what value are you kind of setting that at? I know in the white paper, it says it's going to be about $1. $1.20, depending on when you buy. But in your mind, what's that look like from an actual practical trading standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's something that we definitely thought a long time about. Initially, we just wanted to keep it within an ecosystem of an OTC system. So it will only create an environment whereby I would say there is sort of investors who are sort of envisioning and healthy and believing in the price point. But after we spoke with the Arbidex team and we sort of came to an understanding of what we could do with an LP and how we sort of, it shifted our minds basically in terms of how we see an LP could be used at the end of the day. Because I will say that we came to this understanding where my understanding is that the OTC will sort of work like a spot buy system on a SEX, while the LP pool is going to work like a futures trading house in a sense. So what we always know that at the end of the day, you can't avoid swing traders. So then the question is, how do you control and make a safe playing field for the swing traders? So in that sense, the LP pool, we're only going to commit a very small amount to it. And other than that, we're just going to commit a set amount of funds to sort of fund the farms down the road as well. So swing traders will sort of get to arbitrage their gains from the OTC and from the LP at the same time. So what that means is that at any given moment, the LP will always sort of run up and down based on the speculation, because I believe that as long as we pay out our rewards stably and healthily, and this is not a project that is going to go away in 5 years. We have roadmaps that I've sort of planned for many years down the road, because making changes to a whole industry is not going to take a short time. It's going to take a while, and we're really excited to sort of spearhead this journey together with the local governments and as well as different countries as well. So this would sort of create that, I would say, that benchmark in our token, and this is what we sort of foresee. So as long as we are paying out steadily and stably in terms of our price, and also I just need to point out that whatever we pay out in our 1.5% fixed and our profit participation is not based on not based on the LP price, but the OTC price. So what that means is that the LP price will run on its own. It doesn't affect what we pay out, but it will essentially, the OTC price will sort of level itself with the LP. So in a sense, you sort of get 2 price points, but the OTC price is where we will do our payout. So in that sense, the OTC is the stable market, the LP is where things sort of fluctuate in that sense.
So you have staking. And that's going to impact your actual monthly payouts. And you mentioned farming as well. So if someone decides to contribute to the LP for the token, are they going to be getting payouts for the KERC half of the tokens plus rewards for helping with the liquidity pools? How's that going to work dynamically?
So the farm on Arbidex is going to be funded in terms of, like, the payout is going to be on ARC, that is ARX, and as well as maybe some KERC down the road, because we haven't finalized how much we're going to put into that farm. So that amount in that sense is going to be a different, I would say, a different appetite of investors that sort of don't want to sort of stake their stake in that sense. So because as I said before, we sort of knew we couldn't control the swing traders, and not everyone sort of has that level of appetite to sort of invest into something like this to hold for a long term. Maybe some people like an LP, some people like to basically arbitrage and take that opportunity to sort of buy on the OTC and sell on the LP, or maybe buy on the LP and sell on the OTC and vice versa in that sense. So this sort of creates that healthy, I would say, utilization and exit points for investors as well. So instead of you just waiting on the OTC market, where we see some projects where you have to wait for months to even get someone to sort of buy you out, you can maybe even sell yourself out at a lower price point on the LP market in that sense. So we're basically creating and I would say a utilization of revenues and avenues for our holders who likes to play with the tokens rather than the project itself, I would say.
That makes sense. Yeah, so it's not an inflationary token. Are you planning on implementing any deflationary mechanics at some point, or are you just having a fixed supply and then it'll end up circulating at some point?
So as of now, we don't have any deflationary methods yet. Obviously, we can burn some tokens if we ever believe that we don't think we're going to use any of that. For sure, this is something that we've thought about. But as of now, the reason why we sort of put that price point at that cap of tokens that we have is because when we create that natural buy pressure on our token, whereby we are allowing people to sort of pay using our tokens, we sort of need that liquidity to sort of flow funds in that sense. So that's the reason why we sort of cap it at that level.
Makes sense. And so realistically, you're going to do your first pre-sale starting tomorrow. Am I right?
No, so that is a whitelist sale where basically, I guess we sort of wanted to reward the early people who sort of stuck with us and the early people who sort of came in, and we wanted to basically, I would say the best way to sort of introduce this whole project to everyone as a whole is sort of to get the whitelist of people who sort of stuck with us through the earlier phases, who missed out on the OG sale that we had, and we decided, hey, look, let's do this, let's reward the earlier guys before we move into that pre-sale. So the pre-sale will start on the 24th, and it will last for 1 week.
Awesome. All right, so the 24th. And what's the price difference between the whitelist and the public pre-sale? Is it a public pre-sale?
Yes, it's a public pre-sale, so the price point difference now is 10%.
Okay, so it's not a huge number. Sometimes you'll see pre-sales where it's like a 50% or 80% or like 2x difference between like whitelist and pre-sale, and that's usually a setup. That's usually a setup for a lot of pain for the people who didn't get in early. So it's good to know that the percentage is relatively small. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, timelines are really important. The sooner you can have a business up and running, the happier investors are, especially in DeFi. In DeFi, a month is a week, and there's always this sense of what have you done for me lately, even if it's a great idea and even if you're executing, like what have you done for me lately. So for you, what's the timeline look like for the first operation being acquired and revenue actually being, even if it's small revenue, what's that timeline look like from like pre-sale starts on the 24th of July? What's the gap in time between acquisition and revenue starting to appear, being paid out for people who are participating in the project?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess that's the cuss word or the ban word in DeFi, where it's when and soon.
Yeah.
So how we sort of ran this, like I said, a lot of the initial investment for this project is mostly the team's time and the team's effort, because we have not been paid out in the sense of any of this. We have been working at this for nearly about 6 months now. Back to create this whole things. So meeting people, having meetings and stuff like that. So what we have done is we have already sort of secured a sizable amount of LOIs, so letter of intent. So what that means is that we sort of locked in a couple of assets that we are eyeing already at a certain price point, that we're happy to negotiate with them at this price point, obviously provided given that they're going to give more of the due diligence paperwork that we require, because during that mergers and acquisitions process, obviously there's going to be a lot of skeletons in the closet that you can't really see from a top-down management account. You sort of got to dive deeper in that sense to all their numbers. So we've sent out quite a significant amount of LOIs already. We're sitting on that. So based on those timelines, we know that we can sort of get this whole ball up and running with the first few assets within a month. So after we close the pre-sale, we're looking at a month to sort of clean up whatever is required, tabulate all the funds, start creating the reports in terms of what we're looking at, what assets are we going to purchase at what price point, and stuff like that, and we're good to go.
That's great. All right, cool. Yeah, so I mean, if we're being realistic, it's a soon rather than an actual fixed date, which I was just typing to FIP in the chat. Some DeFi degens will hate that answer. The people with actual real world business experience will understand it, even if it's not an ideal answer. But the truth is it's realistic. You know, like the good news is like you said, you have targets. Like you already have potential acquisitions, like kind of scoped out and ready to go. So that's good to know, because then at least we know you're not starting from scratch. Like, 80% of the battle is finding one's worth purchasing, right? So if you've already got like a short hit list of clinics and pharmacies and GPs that you already kind of circled in your Rolodex, then that's actually a good start.
Yep, that is correct.
Cool. Michael, do you have any questions for John? I know I've been doing most of the talking, but I didn't know if maybe you had lined up a couple curiosities for him about what he's working on.
I did have a couple until I See Dead People came along and pretty much asked every question that I had rolling around in my head.
Alrighty then. Robin Hood asked if there's any geographic focuses or if you plan on developing your network worldwide. I know some of your revenue sources are some sort of as a service. Can you expand on maybe if those are going to be geographically focused or if they actually do have worldwide application? Can you go on into that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think what is really big and some people like manage to sort of catch that vision would be the whole pharmaceutical line in terms of what we're doing. Because when we start acquiring these assets, we will be able to start purchasing a lot of these medication and consumable in bulks. That means we get a very healthy, I would say, or competitiveness in terms of our price points and what we can offer the consumers. So prescription medication, door-to-door prescription medication is something that we definitely are looking at rolling out, and it's easy to roll out once we have the patients in a sense. So what makes us different is that you hear a lot of tech companies who say, oh, we do prescription door-to-door, we do supplements door-to-door, we do pharmaceutical stuff door-to-door and stuff like that, or telemedicine door-to-door. The difference is that we are going to offer this to all our clients already, and it's not like we're going to go out and hunt for clients. So that sort of then snowballs into, I would say, a healthy environment where it's easier for other people who sort of see this on scale and on mass start adopting what we have as well. So the difference is that we have a bigger user base and a bigger use case. And when we start going to different countries, we already have a proof case and a system that works. And when we expand those things, it's very easy for those countries to start adopting into our systems as well, because the honest truth is that medications and consumables are controlled very heavy and severely monopolized by a few big names, which I won't go into. So they are basically global. You can't avoid them. You can use generics, but as long as you want the top of the line medication in the sense of the name brands, you have to use them. So this sort of feeds into our ethos and our growth path down the road.
Okay, cool. And so now I have to be selfish and ask, what exactly is happening with Stasis when it comes to KERC and what you're building?
For sure. I was wondering when we were going to get to that. So
I was doing my best to make it all about you, but I know people are curious, like how does Stasis get integrated into this and how we'll be helping each other. And so I know we had talked previously, but if you want to go ahead and let people know what that functionally looks like, that'd be great.
Sure. So where we see ourselves, as we said before, is we're sort of like a full utilizational project and token in a sense. So what we have as a project is utility, and where we see our partnerships happen is providing utility to all the other projects on different networks, or doing things that we see and innovating in terms of things that we like in a sense. So where we see Stasis happening, we like the direction, we like what you guys are doing here, and that's where we sort of reached out and say, hey, look, I think what we could do is we could basically create a natural buy pressure on your token. What that means is that obviously we can allow our patients down the road to also acquire their health services with Stasis, and we'll basically work with Stasis on to see what kind of benefits can the patient get in that sense. So basically it will sort of look like Stasis, if you choose Stasis to pay with Stasis, you will get X benefit. If you choose to pay with KERC, you will get X benefit. If you choose to pay with fiat, you get no benefit. So this creates a good, healthy natural buy pressure from the real world and not from crypto degens into Stasis. So this essentially was sort of help give you guys a healthy treasury in terms of funds to sort of either do buybacks or utilize into your project.
Cool. And people who are staking KERC tokens, that's the more immediate avenue for us is people who are staking KERC tokens, they can get paid out in USDC as the standard, but for some of your partners, including Stasis, there is the opportunity for them to get paid out in Stasis tokens directly, correct?
Correct. That would be correct. That's one thing I was waiting for you to sort of jump into. No, I was sort of, I want to let you say that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the ability for people to pay for their medical care in your clinics with Stasis, that sounds good, but that also sounds a little far away, And so so for the more immediate impact is if you're invested in KERC and you're staking your tokens and you're earning the USDC every month, you can have the opportunity to have it be paid out in Stasis, which means that USDC will be sent to Polygon. It will be used to buy Stasis off the open market and then sent to you as the holder. And then obviously you can take that and you can single stake it in our platform. You can pair it with Matic or STS Plus and farm it in our platform. And so that's a nice synergy for both projects, is to be able to kind of work together to provide a mutually beneficial impact on not just our token price, but the community overall.
That'll be correct, 100%.
Cool, great. Well, that's the alpha, so everybody can leave now. Have a good day. Michael, did you have anything else you wanted to follow up on before we start to wrap things up?
No, I think both of you guys have been incredibly thorough. It's been really exciting.
That's great. So I always have to give this disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Please do your own research. I highly recommend. The links are in the announcement that we posted a couple days ago. Check out the website. Check out the white paper. I know John has done interviews with a lot of people like Yabonks and Dow King, and they're very thorough. I know Yabonks is incredibly thorough. In fact, I chose not to go through that process with Stasis just because I don't have that level of endurance. That man is from another world. So, but if you guys do have any curiosities, please know that this is not financial advice. Do your own research and make sure that you are as educated on the project as possible. But it's definitely worth taking a look, because I think there is a market for real world assets within Web3. It's just a matter of how do we execute, and how do we make sure that it's done in a way that it satisfies that itch, it scratches that itch that a lot of Web3 investors kind of are looking to get taken care of. So, John, is there anything we're giving away today? Because I'm going to be giving away $25 in STS. Is there anything you would like to be giving away today?
Yes, so we will be, as you guys know, we are still running a whitelist right now for our small community, in a sense, just to thank everyone for the support of joining our Discord and stuff like that. So we are offering one whitelist to the people who are currently in this AMA.
Awesome. Do you want to pick? Do you want me to pick?
Why don't you pick?
Okay. All right. So I will give away the whitelist first, and I think I will give it to, I'm scrolling through usernames and faces right now. I'm going to have to just like circle my mouse icon and see who it lands on. The whitelist allocation is going to go to Paintball 26. So Paintball 26, if you would like to open a ticket, we can get you. Actually, no, if you want to go to the KERC Discord and tag John or open a ticket. John, how do they do that? Do they open a ticket over there?
Yeah, open the ticket in the giveaway section, and our mods will basically hook you up.
Awesome. So Paintball 26, if you want to go over to the KERC Discord, open up a ticket, we'll get you a whitelist allocation. And for the $25 in Stasis, I am not picking randomly. I am picking somebody who helped us the most on this AMA, and that's going to be I See Dead People. I See Dead People, I'm going to give you $25 in Stasis for helping us ask all the questions. That's very cool of you, so I appreciate it. Other than that, John, if you have any final comments, the stage is yours. Feel free to let people know what you got going on.
Yeah, for sure. So hop onto our Discord if you have any more questions. I see there definitely is some more questions from IC Date people. Like if you want to jump into it and get on with me, I'm always happy to answer any of questions that you have. As my Discord people know, I'm quite transparent with any of that. I'm happy to go into long AMAs as well with people, and I'm excited for what we are going to build. So definitely excited about our partnership as well. So right now we're going to have our whitelist sale tomorrow. I'm not sure if you can sort of make the whitelist in a sense. We sort of created a little fun adventures for everyone to sort of enjoy to get into that whitelist. But I don't know if you can sort of finish it in time now. So if you can't, there's always the 24th. That's when the pre-sale is open up to public. It will run for a week, and like I said, looking forward to the partnership between Stasis and KERC, and we are looking to basically do great things in DeFi together. Super excited.
That's awesome. All right, John. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's rolling up on midnight there, so I'm gonna let you go get some rest. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for talking about the project. Hopefully, I wasn't too hard on you with the questions, but I think it's important that you have the time to kind of expand on what you're building, and ultimately. At the end of the day, it all comes down to execution, right? And so I'm going to be very curious and seeing how you go through this process of doing your pre-sale and doing your launch and acquiring your first clinics and pharmacies. Because I just went through this with our project, and so now I kind of get to watch someone else do it.
For sure. Super excited as well. Thank you. Definitely like not hard questions at all. Love answering them. Love some of the different questions that I don't normally get as well. Yeah. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. When it comes to the questions, you clearly know your business. So, and I don't know Southeast Asia. So all I can do is ask about the things that I do know. And so far, it sounds like you've done a great job of planning this. We were just talking about the 5 Ps earlier. Poor planning prevents. I don't remember the actual quote now, but it seems like you've done a great job of planning it. Now it comes down to the execution, and I can't wait to see how you do that.
Yes, excited as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, John. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Paintball, if you want to head over to KERC, open up a ticket. I see dead people if you want to open up a ticket here. Feel free to do that, and we'll get you taken care of. And then I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. John, thank you for joining us. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.